Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today it is our second annual Grandparents Valentine's Day dinner. And the first thing I'm gonna get going with for this dinner is the cake. There's two interesting things about this cake recipe. One, we are gonna make it in this pot, and we're gonna melt 1 cup or 2 sticks of butter in this pot. And the second cool thing about this cake is we are going to use freshly milled flour in this cake. So two kind of interesting things about this cake. I'm excited to see how it turns out. Now that I'm melting my butter, we can come over here and we can measure out our wet ingredients. We're supposed to heat everything up on the stove, which I think is kind of interesting. To go along with this dinner today, the main course is going to be a pomegranate braised beef chuck roast. The recipe that I found and got inspired by for this dinner is actually supposed to be short ribs, but I'm gonna substitute that. We have 2 veggie sides we're gonna make. I haven't decided yet if we're gonna do a bread or not, and then we're gonna set the table really, really beautifully. Went way over on the milk. And then I'm gonna add water to that. And I almost forgot to mention that to serve our beef on top of, we're gonna make a creamy, cheesy polenta, which I have never made before, so that's gonna be kind of fun and a little nerve-wracking to see how well this polenta is gonna turn out for tonight's dinner. So we've got quite a few recipes we're gonna be making. That is perfect on the water. We were actually supposed to put in coffee, but we drank all of our coffee this morning, so I don't have any leftover coffee. But the recipe said you can substitute espresso powder and water for the coffee, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna turn my stove off with the butter because I don't want that to get too brown while I'm over here measuring out our ingredients. And to make this cake a little bit more interesting, I'm gonna use this black cocoa. One, it has a delicious flavor. This is the cocoa powder that's used in making Oreos. And it definitely has a distinct flavor, and it's gonna give this cake a really, really beautiful color. And we need 75 grams of this. That's probably good right there, 78, because I have a little bit on the scale there. You can see our butter's browning just a little bit on that side. I'm gonna mix this in. I'm actually gonna whisk this in. I don't wanna make the milk and everything hot. I just want it all incorporated together. The butter melted, the milk, the water, the cocoa powder, the espresso powder. Need to get that butter to melt. I want that to cool down just a bit before I add things like my eggs and stuff like that. So I'm gonna take a second to go ahead and freshly mill my wheat. This recipe calls for soft white wheat berries, which is the perfect type of wheat to grind for a cake because it has a little less gluten in it. It actually has a higher moisture content than some of the hard wheats. And so it makes it for a perfect option for cakes. I've never made a cake with fresh milled flour. This is the first time, so I'm excited to see how this is gonna turn out with you all. And I'm gonna go ahead and weigh out 264 grams of wheat berries. This recipe does have cups if you're more comfortable working with cups. I just have the scale out, so I'm gonna go ahead and weigh everything. Perfect, 264 grams of soft white wheat. It is crazy to me that we can turn this into flour with a simple push of a button.
I can link this grain mill down below for you in 2 different areas. Just know that sometimes it's out of stock. One reason it took me so long to finally get this grain mill is I'd be ready to order it and then it wasn't available, and then I wasn't ready and it was available, and so the timing just had to line up. So just know it might or might not be available.
And there is our flour. I just read through this recipe fully, which I probably should have done earlier or yesterday, but such is life. I just read through, and the interesting thing is, because this is the first time I am making a fresh milled flour cake, the steps are a little bit different. So now we've got our pot with our water, our espresso powder, our cocoa powder. I'm gonna go ahead and add to this. I have let it cool just a little bit, and I didn't let it get too hot. I'm gonna add sour cream. I need 190 grams of sour cream. It was almost perfect right there. There we go. That's the last thing we need for the scale, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my pot on my countertop. I'm actually gonna whisk in this sour cream just to cool that down a little bit more before I add my eggs, because I don't wanna scramble my eggs. So I can add just a little bit of vanilla, or maybe a good bit of vanilla.
You all know, friend, that I make a lot of desserts. Let me tell you that this is probably one of the top desserts I have made in a long time. I'm not even a huge cake fan, but something about the cocoa powder, the fresh milled wheat, and the frosting we're gonna make, it was incredible.
That is not fully incorporated yet, but I can tell that my mixture has fully cooled. So I'm gonna add 3 large eggs. Pop each egg yolk and whisk that together. I almost forgot the sugar. So we need to weigh the sugar out. So I'm gonna get my scale back out, put my pot back on here, zero this out. And I'm gonna use this beautiful vanilla sugar that we made together. When I make homemade vanilla extract, I save the vanilla bean pods after I'm done extracting the essence of vanilla into the vanilla extract. Then I dry them out in my dehydrator and I throw them in sugar, and it creates a delicious vanilla sugar. We need 200 grams of this sugar. I'm gonna keep the vanilla bean pods out of here as best I can. Perfect. Now we need brown sugar. This is very similar to my mom's chocolate cake recipe that I make, but the steps are different just because of using the fresh milled wheat. We need 213 grams of brown sugar. Right there. It already smells so good. You can smell the brown butter, and I can smell that cocoa powder already. Now we're gonna add our flour, and you'll notice I'm not adding any leavening agents yet at this point. We actually are gonna mix our flour into our wet mixture, and we're gonna let this sit for 15 minutes. We're gonna let this flour hydrate before we mix in the leavening agents. So this is where this is definitely a little bit different than making a cake using all-purpose flour. And once it's fully combined, I'm gonna stop mixing because the recipe says not to over mix. But since I'm right here and I'm at my baking station, I'm gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna go ahead and measure out my leavening agents and my salt. This recipe calls for both baking soda and baking powder. That one's baking powder. That's baking soda. And then we are gonna add vinegar to this, but I don't wanna add the vinegar to it until right before we mix it into our cake batter. Here's our cake batter. We can prepare our baking dishes now. You know what? Before I get those baking dishes prepared, I'm gonna get the main course started. because it is noon right now and dinner is gonna be at 6:30. I said, come over anytime after 6. I'll plan to serve dinner around 6:30. And so I definitely need to get these roasts in the oven. So I have 2 kind of smallish chuck roast here, and I'm going to sear them in my Dutch oven, but I want to season them up with a little bit of salt first. I pulled 2 out of the freezer because I wasn't sure if 1 was going to be quite enough. And if we have leftovers of this beef, I will enjoy it as meal prep. Some avocado oil.
It's going to take a few minutes, probably about 4 to 5 minutes on each side to brown this chuck roast. And so that's why I figured, hey, let's go ahead and switch focus to these so these can be browning while we do other things and we can get this process going. I went back and forth whether I was going to start with the cake or I was going to start with the chuck roast because I always love to be as efficient in the kitchen as possible. And I decided to start with the cake first because that needed to bake and cool completely before we frost this cake. And I've already mentioned it once, but this is probably one of the best desserts I have made in a very long time. Between the cake flavor and the frosting that we're going to make in a bit, oh my goodness, it was the perfect level of sweetness. And oh my gosh, I'm excited to share with you the frosting that we're going to make. But first, before we make the frosting, we actually need to bake the cake. And before we bake the cake, we need to prepare these baking pans. These are 2 9-inch baking pans. I just put a little bit of avocado spray, and then I'm going to use these pre-cut parchment papers. One of my favorite things. I get these as a Christmas gift every year, and I love them. They make life so easy. And because we're going to be decorating the cake as a naked style cake, I think it's what it's called, where the sides are going to be showing, I want to make sure that I coat that baking dish nice and well with some oil and no flour because I don't want that flour residue look to be on the cake because that is going to be showing. And now that the cake pans are prepared and we are browning our chuck, I am going to prepare some of the aromatics that we need for this brazing liquid, which is here I had some small onions from the garden from last year. I have some shallots that need to be used up, and so I'm going to get these peeled. We're not actually going to eat these onions and shallots. They're just going to be for flavor. And so all I'm going to do is cut the roots off and peel them. And the original recipe that I got inspired by to make this pomegranate braised chuck roast was actually a short rib recipe, but I'm substituting chuck roast because I prefer chuck roast over short ribs, and I'd have chuck roast in my freezer. I don't have short ribs. So just know if you find recipes that you like the flavor components of, you can usually substitute the cut of meat if they have a similar cooking time. So a chuck roast and short ribs have similar cooking times. I do end up adding actually more liquid because I know a chuck roast is going to take a little bit longer than short ribs.
Now that it is thoroughly smoky in here, we're going to make up our brazing liquid. I do have the stove turned off, and I am going to cover these chuck roast about halfway with liquid. Brazing is one of my favorite cooking techniques. It's where you usually cook it in the oven and you have your meat, protein, or whatever vegetable or whatever you're braising covered about halfway with liquid. So the first liquid we're gonna put in there is pomegranate juice. The second liquid here is some homemade chicken broth. And that turned that pretty pink. So we're gonna see how this turns out. Now I'm gonna drop in a couple bay leaves, and we're gonna keep this seasoning pretty simple with our shallots, some onion. Get that in there. I have not added any pepper yet. A good amount of pepper. A lot of garlic. This is some garlic that was peeled and I froze. And then one big sprig of rosemary. I'm just gonna stick that right in that liquid. I'm gonna cover, actually I'm gonna turn this back on. I'm gonna have this come to a boil, and then we will pop this into our oven to slow cook for the rest of the day. I almost forgot one ingredient. So I will link these recipes down below for you. And the recipe that I am adapting for this is actually originally written to be a short rib recipe. Short ribs are not my favorite. I love a chuck roast. And so we're going to basically adapt that recipe for this. And one of the ingredients the recipe calls for is pomegranate molasses, or pomegranate syrup is what I could find. So that's what I have here. We need to add, I don't know, that much to it. I should have probably tasted this before I go in and add a ton of it to my dish. Basically what it is it's cooked down pomegranate juice. Wow. That is incredible. I really like that. It's kind of like a tart, sweet, refreshing condiment. So we'll probably end up drizzling some of this on the top when it's completely done. And you can see that this is starting to come to a boil now. I just added the rest too of my chicken broth, so I have more than halfway up this meat covered in liquid, but this is gonna be cooking for probably 6 hours or so, so I think that will be okay. So now let's get this into our oven. Our main dish is ready to go. That was easy. It's now been 15 minutes while this has been sitting and hydrating. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in my leavening agents plus 1 teaspoon of white distilled vinegar. I think the point is that the vinegar is gonna react with the baking soda and create a light and fluffy cake. I'm gonna put that over there. And I think what I'm gonna do is use my whisk so that I know that I can get that leavening agent and baking soda incorporated really well together. And just like that, our main dish and our dessert are going. Josh picked up some flowers for me so that we can decorate the table and or the cake. I'm not sure what I'm gonna be doing with any of these flowers, whether they're gonna turn into table decor or cake design. Well, that was really easy. So I think what I'm gonna do now, before we get going on our vegetable, we do need to make a frosting to go on our cake, but our cake needs to bake for, the recipe says about 35 to 40 minutes, and then it needs to cool. So we've got some time before we can bake our cake. So I think what I'm gonna do is just do a few dishes here and get these dishes into the dishwasher. And then we're gonna get going on both of our vegetable sides, because we need to wash our veggies and prep them. We are gonna make a Brussels sprout salad with a honey Dijon mustard vinaigrette. And we are gonna make green beans, just a simple garlic, buttery green bean. I think it'll be nice to have that like acidity with the vinaigrette and the freshness of the Brussels sprouts, and then just a simple garlicky butter green bean to go along with the very rich beef that I believe this is gonna be. I've never cooked anything like this before using well, that's not true. I was gonna say I've never used juice to braise something before, but I use pineapple juice and orange juice to braise pork shoulder all the time, and that's delicious. So it's just kind of a different take on that. I think I'm just gonna put all these big dishes that could be washed by hand in the dishwasher. I'll run it, and then I can unload the dishwasher right before my parents and my in-laws get here. And then I can have an empty dishwasher, so after dinner, all the dinner dishes can go right into the dishwasher. This is basically full now at this point. Once I get these few more dishes in here. We've got some leftover dishes from this morning, and that's why it's already full, even though we have only done 2 recipes so far today. I got the dishwasher unloaded, I got the island clean, and I got everything set up for 2 of our sides so we can prep those next. One of my main goals is to clean up as I go today. Normally, when I do big preps for dinners, the kitchen tends to get to be a little bit of a disaster by the end of the cooking session, because normally I do all the prep the day before, but tonight is the party. So I want to try to clean as I go. So you and I will see if we can do that together. So I've got 2 veggie sides that I want to do today. One of my family members is eating low carb, and that's why I wanted to have 2 options as opposed to just one to go along with the beef, because obviously the polenta is not gonna be a low carb option. And I'm gonna snap the ends of these green beans off and just go through the green beans, pick out the nice, beautiful looking ones. It's definitely not green bean season right now, but I love green beans as a side because they're delicious and they're easy. So I'm gonna prep them now, and we will cook them probably about 10 minutes or so before I plan to serve them. I'm just gonna saute them, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do that, but it's gonna be a really, really simple side dish. But I wanna get the bottoms off. I'll end up giving those to the chickens. They'll be happy to have something nice and green. And I'll get them washed up, and they'll be ready to go for us. Josh picked up these green beans for me this morning, and I'm glad he grabbed 2 bags because I'm going through and picking out the nice looking beans here. I'm just gonna let these sit here until tonight for dinner, and I'm gonna grab out the last few ingredients we need to go in there, so it's gonna be ready for me. I'm gonna put 2 garlic pucks in here to thaw, and those will be ready for us come dinner time. And 1 tablespoon of butter. And this is one of our sides basically done. I just have to cook it now. It's all prepped and ready to go for me. Josh just grabbed me my big white bowl because we're gonna get going on our next side, which is going to be our cauliflower salad. And we do need to prep these and wash these. The chickens are gonna enjoy all this green that they haven't had very much of lately. And I'm just gonna cut the bottoms of these cauliflower florets off. Brussels sprouts. Yes, Josh, these are Brussels sprouts.
For a second there, I was like,
wait.
Are they mini cauliflowers?
No, these are Brussels sprouts. They're mini cabbages. Brassicas are my chicken's favorite veggies, and that's what a Brussels sprout is. It's a brassica, or it's in the brassica family. They love them, so they will be thrilled. I don't know if they'll eat the green beans, probably not, but I'll give it to them anyway, and if they want it, they can have it. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it. These are huge Brussels sprouts. I can tell my cakes are almost done, but they are not quite done. I think I have enough time to go ahead and shave these Brussels sprouts. For this salad, I don't want to take the time to do this by hand. You can, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to use the help of the food processor to shave this into basically kind of like a slaw, almost. And I'm just going to put one in at a time. And in that amount of time, we have this beautiful cauliflower slaw. And that filled that perfectly. It didn't look like that many Brussels sprouts. Did I say cauliflower again? Brussels sprouts. It didn't look like that many Brussels sprouts until I shaved it down. And that was a lot. I'm gonna put this into the bowl. That's way too much for tonight. I'm gonna put this into the bowl that I'm gonna serve it in. And with the green beans, I already know that's more than we're gonna need for tonight. So what I'm going to do is test my cake first, actually. I was going to grab a Ziploc bag, but my Ziploc bags are out up here, so I have to run downstairs. So I want to check this cake before I do anything. And those are done. I don't want to overcook them because then you get dry cake. Okay, we're gonna let these cool for about 10 minutes and then we'll put them onto a cooling rack. But you can see how beautiful and dark they are. I'm so excited to make the frosting with you for those cakes. We're gonna make a mascarpone whipped cream frosting. That's gonna be incredible because I have some leftover mascarpone cheese from the last dinner party that we were supposed to have. I wanna take a quick peek at this real quick. Okay, good. It's simmering a little bit in there, which is great. It smells so good in here already. It smells like sweet and rich and decadent with a little bit of herbiness from that little bit of rosemary we put in there. So good. I was gonna use that as a garnish for a beverage, but I thought it would actually be better with the beef than in our drink. I ran downstairs to grab some Ziploc bags so we can package up some of that Brussels sprouts for later, and it has now been probably 10 minutes. So I'm going to turn out my cakes. I don't want them to cool completely in these cake tins. Beautiful. It smells like an Oreo cookie. It smells so yummy. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, get that off. We're gonna let those cool completely and then we'll frost and decorate them. It's so funny because I thought that's not very many Brussels sprouts. And then after shaving them, it's like they expanded. So I think I'm probably only gonna make half of it because I don't want to have too much of the salad. The green beans we can eat the next day if we don't eat all the green beans, but the Brussels sprout salad, it does okay, better than like a green leafy lettuce mix the next day, but I still don't want to have too much of that. So we're gonna have about half of that. Let's go ahead and make up the salad dressing. I have made Brussels sprout salads making tons of different styles of dressings. One of our favorites is Caesar, but I thought a honey mustard would go better with tonight's dinner. So I need to grab out the ingredients for that. This is 1 part honey to 1 part mustard. So we're kind of halfway there already with this mix. I'm gonna make my dressing. Oop. I think that's a big thing of honey that just plopped in there. In this little mason jar so I don't make too much dressing. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm making a mess. I'm gonna add 1 big puck of garlic to that. That's gonna take a minute to thaw. I probably should have let it thaw before I plopped it in there. And then I've got a shallot here. I think I'm probably gonna add half of this shallot, and I'm gonna mince it super fine. I love making homemade salad dressings. Once you start making homemade ones, you're not gonna want the store-bought ones because they're just so fresh and delicious. Yep, that's probably a good amount of shallot there. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the other half of the shallot, so I'm gonna peel this and just pop this in with my beef once I'm done making the salad dressing. That way that doesn't go to waste. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, good amount of black pepper, couple tablespoons of red wine vinegar. I might have to get a bigger container. I was not wanting to make a ton of salad dressing, but I might just have to grab a bigger container. Then I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of a delicious olive oil. And I'm not gonna be able to taste this for a little bit because I need that garlic to thaw before I can really get the true taste of it. Put a lid on here. Shake, shake, shake. I didn't want to wait for that garlic to thaw before testing this and seeing if it needs anything, so I just popped that garlic puck into the microwave for about 30 seconds. And now I can mix that in there. I'm gonna put the lid back on. I think I'm gonna add a little more pepper. And just a pinch of salt. I don't think it needs any more vinegar. I don't think it needs any more mustard. Oh, that is so good. So our salad is basically done. I'm gonna add some dried cranberries to this and some pickled onions, but that's already done. So I'm just gonna put my salad dressing in the side here, cover this, pop this in the fridge, and I just need to dress this and put the toppings on, and we are good to go for this salad. So now we officially have 2 of our sides prepped. We have our dessert on its way. We have our main on its way. I can't do the polenta until about an hour before people get here. So that's not gonna be till like 5 o'clock. It's only 1:30 right now. My dishwasher is still going. I'm gonna clean the island again. I'm gonna put the food processor away. And then let's set the table next because we kind of have some time where we can focus on the table and make that really, really beautiful. Oh my goodness, this smells so good already. Look at that. So I don't mind that I added way more liquid than the recipe, or then halfway up the beef. I think that's probably good that I did. That'll just reduce as this cooks for many, many more hours today. I am gonna have to watch a video on how to make these napkin bows. How cute is that? I think that's so cute. Napkin folding bows. Okay, here we go. This is the video I watched. It's 33 seconds long. I can link this video down below if you want to try to make your napkins look like a bow. But I will also show you what I'm gonna do here. And it's already going too fast. It's only a 30-second video. I'm actually gonna slow this down. I've never done that before. Did you know you can slow and speed up videos? Can you? Yeah, you can slow it down. Okay, that's too slow.
I have always loved bows, and when I saw this idea originally on Instagram, it must have been around Christmas time. I thought, I am going to try to recreate that for my grandparents' Valentine's Day dinner. I knew when I saw that reel that I was going to try to attempt to recreate that, and that is what we are doing here today. The original bow that you saw me hold up, I actually made that bow, I think 2 weeks prior to this. I was just kind of playing around and doing a mock-up to see if I actually did like it, and I do indeed think it is absolutely adorable. And so I couldn't remember though on this day how I did it, so that's why I had to pull the video up, and I probably had to watch that video 20 or 30 times before maybe not that many, maybe 20 times before I was able to get it down. But then once I get one down, the rest of them are really, really easy. And once I get the bow shape, I secure it with a napkin ring, and then I do take time to like fluff it so that it lays nicely. The original idea that I saw for this, the bow napkin was sitting on the plate, and that is what I want to do for this dinner. And so I just take some time to make sure I like the way the bow lays. Now, I am someone who typically loves to have things ironed. I don't like wrinkles in my clothes. I don't iron my sheets, but typically I would take the time to iron these napkins. But the first 2 bows that I made, the first time I made the bow like 2 weeks prior, I did not iron the napkin, and you couldn't tell that the napkin wasn't ironed. And so I decided to skip that step, and you can't even tell once you have the bow made up that these napkins were not ironed. But typically I am someone who likes to take the time to iron things. But if I can save myself a little bit of time and no one knows that there's wrinkles in these napkins, then I am going to save myself a little bit of time. And that's what I did on this day. So here is the 3rd bow all made up. I did originally make these bows with the same napkin rings that I used the last time we set the table. But you're going to see that I do end up changing out how I secure the bow, because once I have the whole table made up, I don't like the way that these napkin rings look. I just think it is a little too much for the table, and so you're going to see how I'm going to change that up in just a minute. I used to think the idea of investing in pieces to create a beautiful table was a little bit unnecessary and frivolous, but I've definitely come to the conclusion, especially last time we set the table, I thought it was so beautiful, and it brings me so much joy to take the time to set a beautiful table that I've realized this is my hobby. I can invest in a hobby, and I am slowly building a little collection of different colored napkins and different candles and candlestick holders and things like that so that I can create a beautiful table. But one thing I am trying to do is invest in things that are very versatile. So you're going to see how we are going to have this tablescape look completely different than it did when we sat the last table, even though we're going to use more than half of the same items. So you can see I originally bought this table runner for the Valentine's Day, but the color was not the exact color that I thought it was when it came, and I don't love the way the red napkins go with that kind of mauve purple color. So I'm going to pull out my tried and true ivory table runners, and we're going to use this. So we're almost going to use all of the same items you're going to see if you saw me set the last table for this table, but with just a couple tweaks. So the color of the napkins and how I shape the napkins, because the last tablescape, the napkins were completely different shape, and a different color candle, and adding a few flowers. This table is going to look so different, and it's going to feel very Valentine's Day, even though I used the same stuff for the last dinner party that was not Valentine's Day at all. And one thing I do want to start doing more of, because I've been following a couple people that do set beautiful tablescapes and they thrift a lot of their items, I would love to start doing that. I go through phases where I have time to go thrifting, and what I probably should do is just dedicate a little bit more time to thrifting. It takes time to go thrifting, and sometimes I don't always feel like I have the time to do that, but I want to start doing that more because I do have quite a few candlesticks that I have thrifted, and I use them all the time. But I think it would be fun to maybe not just go thrifting, but go like to antique malls and stuff like that and find really beautiful table linens, because I have definitely seen those in the past and not bought them. And I think it would be fun to start kind of building a collection of antique table linens and tableware and stuff like that. So here you can see every item that's on the table right now are all items that we used for the last dinner party. It's the same table runner, same 2 chargers, and same plates, but the napkins look completely different and the color is different. And I love getting pieces that aren't holiday specific. So these are red napkins. These are a linen napkin that I bought, and they are a nice quality napkin, but they are red, and red can go for Valentine's Day, it can go for Christmas, it can go for just a random party that I want a red napkin, but the napkins don't have hearts on them or something like that where I would really only want to use them on Valentine's Day. I'm setting the napkins in the middle of the plate because that's how I saw it, and I think that is so cute. I'm pulling out the same candlesticks that we used for the last dinner party, and I originally was going to put white candles in them, but I have some candlesticks that I had bought 2 years ago with you. We had gone shopping for some Christmas decor stuff, and I had bought these gold candles, and I had never lit them before. When I was putting the white candles in the brass candlesticks, I didn't love that contrast, and so I put them in, and I mean, it's pretty looking at it, but I thought that it might be cool to actually use the gold candlesticks that I had purchased 2 years ago and never used them. And so we do end up burning these gold candlesticks. But I kind of like the look of the gold and brass together. I guess they're all kind of brassy, but it kind of looks like the candle is part of the candlestick, and I just kind of like that little bit more monochromatic look for this table scape. It takes a lot of my mental capacity in order to set these tables. I have to think really, really hard, and I'm making a lot of mental decisions, and that's why I look very, very focused right here. Oh, I did want to say, I now know, thank you for teaching me, the forks go on the left-hand side, the spoons should go on the right-hand side, and the knife should go on the right-hand side. I technically did know this when I would have to set the table as a kid. My mom always wanted us to set the spoons and the forks and the knives and everything on the correct side of the plate. But as an adult, I have never really cared about which side they go on. And I am just kind of setting the table. You all taught me in the last video, I should have the forks on the left-hand side, the spoons on the right-hand side, and the knife on the right-hand side, and the knife should be facing the plate. And so now I know that. I didn't know that. I hadn't read all those comments when I set this table. So next time I set the table, I will make sure to set the silverware correctly. It never really, I guess I never really thought about where I should be placing the silverware other than I wanted it to look pretty, not necessarily be correct. And so now I know the correct way. I will make sure to set it the correct way. And this is here where I am trading out the napkin ring. I just didn't love the look of that kind of geode napkin ring. It just felt a little too much and a little too over the top for what I was going for this table. And so I go ahead and I take out some red velvet ribbon that I have, and I use that to tie the bow instead of using that napkin ring. So here you can see everything is exactly the same as it was for the last dinner party, except for the color of the candles, the color of the napkins, and then I do put a few flowers on the table, and then everything else was exactly the same, and it looks completely different. So just a couple little tweaks, and you can really kind of theme your table around different holidays or events or whatever it might be. So I originally wanted white flowers for this table scape. Josh was at the gym the morning of this dinner, and on his way home, I asked him if he would stop at the store and pick up flowers for me. And I said I would like white flowers, or if you can't find that, I would like pink and red flowers. And he could not find white flowers, so he got me some red roses and pink roses to play around with. And I didn't quite have enough red roses to do just a couple big bunches of red roses on the table, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with these flowers, so this probably took me I don't know. It took me a little bit of time to figure out what I wanted to do, and what I decided to do is use these tiny little vases that I have and put one red rose in each vase. So I do think the red roses look nice and kind of nod to Valentine's Day, and it was just kind of a simple way to get a little bit of pop of color and a little bit of floral on the table. So this is what the table looks like all done. Super happy with that. But I still have these pink roses and these white little flowers that Josh got that I need to get into a vase. And all I do with these is I take a mason jar and I take all of the pink flowers and I put them in a vase, and I just make one big vase of pink flowers. I'm so excited for my flowers for my garden. Today, my Snapdragon seeds came in the mail, and so this coming week, I am going to be planting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Snapdragon flowers, and we are going to be having our own flowers come out of the garden. So here I'm just taking the extra flowers that Josh bought, and I'm just kind of placing them around the kitchen so that we get a little pop of color here and there with the fresh flowers. And of course, I need to clean up my mess because I made a huge mess. That's kind of how it goes in the kitchen. I get it cleaned up and then I make a mess. I get it cleaned up and then I make a mess. So these little white flowers, I'm not sure what these little white flowers are. I just put all of them in a vase and I throw those next to the pink flowers. My floors needed to be swept again because there was a lot of foliage everywhere. Tibro is saying hi to you all. Tibro and the new little dog have become best friends. It is the cutest thing. I catch them cuddling together all the time, and it warms my heart so much. And so that's been so fun to see their relationship kind of blossom. But here I am just sweeping up and cleaning up my mess so that we can enjoy clean floors for the party.
I love setting the table. That's obviously quickly becoming one of my new favorite hobbies, but it takes a lot of my mental capacity in order to do that. And I think it turned out really nice. I did tweak a couple things a few times here and there, and I think the final result is beautiful. So now what we're gonna do is make our frosting for our cake, because our cake is nice and cooled at this point. I'm gonna make this in the KitchenAid. This is gonna come together really quickly. I'm stealing this idea basically from the last dessert we made. The cake recipe does not come with the frosting recipe, and the tiramisu brownie that we made last time, I loved the mascarpone cheese whipped cream topping. And I think this cake, this chocolate cake with a mascarpone whipped cream frosting is gonna be incredible. I'm not a huge fan of frosting, but I loved this mixture that was on those tiramisu brownies, that I thought I wanted to try it as a cake frosting. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start with mascarpone cheese, which is kind of like a fancy cream cheese. I had never bought it before until now, and I really like it. You could absolutely use mascarpone cheese instead of cream cheese on bagels and stuff like that. It's kind of richer. It's not quite as tart. I like cream cheese too, but this is really good as well. So I'm gonna put probably the equivalent of about 16 ounces. So I had half of a container, and this is the other half of the other container. Now I'm gonna top that with cream. I need to go get some more cream. So I have 16 ounces of cream in here, 3 cups of heavy cream. I'm not doing the exact ratios of that mascarpone recipe. I'm just using that as a inspiration. And we're going to put in 1, 2, 3 glugs of vanilla extract and powdered sugar. I think I like this recipe so much because it didn't call for very much powdered sugar, so it wasn't very sweet at all. Versus most frosting recipes are, you know, mostly powdered sugar. I'm probably gonna put the equivalent of about 1 cup of powdered sugar in here. I'm not measuring anything. I'm gonna whip this up together, and then I'm gonna taste this, and we'll see if it needs anything. I'm gonna start on low just to mix everything, And I remember thinking, this isn't gonna turn out well, and then it does. I'm just gonna give this a little taste to see if it needs more sugar. No, that's plenty sweet. You know, I don't know if this is gonna fit or stay between two cake layers, if it's not gonna just ooze completely out. I probably should mix in some more. I didn't really think about that. This might be a problem. I guess that's what can happen when I'm kind of making this up as I go. There we go. It's a little stiffer now. All right, there is our frosting / whipped cream. My plan was to decorate it just like a tiered cake, but now I'm a little worried that this frosting is not going to be strong enough to hold a cake. I didn't really think about that because with the tiramisu brownie, it was just a topping. So I grabbed my trifle bowl because if I need to, I could make a trifle. But let's try decorating this as a cake first. We have a little bit of cream there to hold my cake in place. I'm gonna taste this cake. That dark cocoa, I can link that. I bought that on Amazon, is incredible. I probably made twice as much frosting as I need. I think this will be stiff enough to hold another cake on top. It's gonna kind of look like an Oreo too. I didn't really plan that. I'm gonna do a naked cake, so I'm not gonna put the frosting on the outside. I want the dark frosting or the dark cake to show through. Oh yeah, that's pretty. And that holds that cake, no problem. I may have just had a little bit more of that cake that came off the top and was on the cooling rack. So good. I'm gonna pop this in the refrigerator, and that is our dessert. I think it's really pretty, really easy. You could definitely drizzle some caramel on the top, some chocolate on the top, chocolate shavings. Maybe I'm gonna do that. Do I wanna put some chocolate shavings on the top, or do I wanna leave it plain? I think I'm gonna leave it plain. I like the black and white contrast. So in the fridge this goes. At this point, the only thing that I have not prepped at all yet is the polenta. And I think what I'm gonna do now, because the dishwasher has been unloaded, I'm just getting it loaded one more time. I'm gonna turn it on again, run it on a quick cycle. It's probably about half full. I probably could wait, but I really, really want it to be empty when my guests arrive so that as soon as dinner's over and dessert's over, we can just load it up and there'll be less cleanup tomorrow that will have to be done. So I wanna make sure I put on a quick cycle. Some dishes got washed by hand so I can put those away. I think I do want to read through, I'm gonna wash the sink. My polenta recipe, because I have never made polenta. Many of you probably are polenta making experts out there. And you know exactly how to make the perfect creamy, non-burnt, sticked on to the bottom of the pan polenta. That's what I'm worried about. But I have never done that before, so I need to reread the recipe multiple times so that I have a good understanding of what I am doing. Normally when I have people over. I don't usually try to do recipes like this where I know I have to actually start and cook it right when my guests get here or a little bit before. It says it takes about 45-ish minutes to cook on the stove. So I probably will start it around 5:30. I'm sure, see, I don't know, does Polenta get gummy if you don't serve it right away? I don't know. I don't know these things. So far, this has probably been one of the easiest parties to plan. I feel like the food prep hasn't been that hard, and I decided against doing a bread. I just don't think we need it. Pomegranate braised short ribs, those are just cooking away. I realized when I was checking the meat not that long ago that this recipe said to add some flour when browning the meat, and I didn't do that, but the gravy seems to already be thickening up just fine, so I'm not really worried about that. Brussels sprout salad is done. I just have to toss the salad and add the toppings. Oh, we still need to make our punch. This is a alcoholic version, the one I printed off, but I think I'm gonna make a mocktail tonight. So I'm gonna use this recipe as inspiration for the mocktail. It's gonna be a pomegranate mocktail because we are making pomegranate braised short ribs or braised chuck roast. Cake is done. And here, bring the water and milk to a boil in a heavy bottom pan in a small Dutch oven. Stir in the salt. Gradually sprinkle in, okay, so you boil the liquids first. Gradually sprinkle in the polenta into the pan while whisking at the same time. Keep whisking the cornmeal in until well incorporated and smooth. Turn the heat to very low and simmer and cover and continue to cook polenta. Okay, so I can leave it. I was thinking I had to stir it the whole time. It's gonna take 25 to 35, up to 45 minutes to cook. Stir the polenta every 10 minutes. Be patient. Keep cooking until thick, fluffy, and it pulls away from the sides. And I was thinking I wanted to make more than I need because I have had polenta, like fried polenta cakes at restaurants. I've never made it, but I think it would be cool if we have enough that I can try frying some tomorrow. Okay, then we're gonna stir in the cheese and the butter after it's fully cooked and then salt to taste. Okay, so I think I'm gonna measure out some of these ingredients now so that I have them measured out. This is the polenta I bought. I had never bought this before, and so I hope this is good. At this point in the day, it is 3:35. Our beef is cooking away, and our sides are all prepped and ready. Polenta here, I've got Parmesan cheese, some cream I'm gonna finish it with, some butter, and our grit, or polenta, or cornmeal. Our water milk mixture, our green beans are here, our butter, our garlic is here. We have some flowers, which are pretty. In here, we have our Brussels sprout salad. Our dessert is in the outside fridge, and our table is set. So the only thing I need to do now at this point for dinner is make the punch, which I'm not gonna do right now because some of the components of it are going to be bubbly, and so I want to keep that carbonation in there. I am having some carbonated water myself right now because it's just what I like, and I feel like I've kind of accomplished a lot of what I set out to accomplish today. Again, they're not gonna be here till 6-ish. Dinner's gonna be served at 6:30, so we have quite a few hours, so I get to relax for the next few hours. I don't think I'm gonna make a bread. Maybe I will decide to make a bread. I don't know, I should ask Josh what he thinks. Here is our beef. See, you can see how much that liquid has cooked down. Just grabbed a fork. Ooh, that's pretty tender at this point. Ooh, gosh, okay, making a mess. I'm gonna rotate my beef around. And then I'm gonna turn this oven down. So I've had this cooking at 350 because again, I got started a little bit later than I wanted to. I'm gonna rotate this. Halfway through, I did scrape the sides of the pot. You can see all this browning. That is the Maillard reaction. That's umami flavor, it's delicious. See, that is almost as tender as I want it. Just like that, get that flavor into the pot. Get the lid back on. I better wipe the door up or that is gonna make a burnt mess on there. I need to clean my ovens anyway, so that's better than nothing. I'm gonna turn this oven down to, let's see, let me turn it to 200. It's gonna continue to cook in there. It just needs to finish getting tender. And then before my family gets here, what I probably will do is take it out, remove the meat from the bone, any fatty bits that I don't want in there, reduce the sauce, and then it'll just be the beef. It's not going to, I'll have it ready to serve basically. I'm gonna taste it. Wow. I was expecting that to be sweeter because obviously we put probably about 1.5 cups or 2 cups of juice in there, but that has so much savory flavor. So good. I cannot wait to try the pomegranate. I'm gonna reduce that sauce and make it really thick and just a delicious sauce, topped over Parmesan polenta. I feel like that's gonna be really good. If you don't like polenta, I don't even know if I really like polenta, but if you don't like polenta, I think this would also be really good over mashed potatoes. But now I'm gonna go relax, enjoy my family. As soon as the dishwasher is done, we'll get that unloaded. The floors have been swept. I do think I probably will run the mop one more time because if you were with me yesterday, we made a ton of cookies here. These are going to be gifts for my in-laws and for my parents. I was gonna set these down here. I put the raspberry cookies, maybe I'll just keep them up there for now, but I put the raspberry cookies in the fridge. So if you're with me, those are Valentine's Day treats. And I have not mopped since then. Yesterday was a huge baking day. I've swept it, I vacuumed the floor, but I haven't mopped because I knew I was gonna be cooking. So at some point I will run the mop, or Josh will run the mop in here.
I have had some time to relax, but before my family gets over here, I want to go ahead and take a minute to take care of this beef. So I don't enjoy biting into any fatty bits. I don't want my family to have to try to eat around those if they don't enjoy that either. And so I do take the time to remove those bits and just keep the meat in the pot. I try to drain the beautiful sauce that we've created from all the aromatics because we don't need the garlic and the onions at this point anymore, or the rosemary. So I'm going to let that sit in my fat separator so we can put just that beautiful sauce that we've made back into the beef. This is such a unique dish. I have never had anything like this before. I said earlier that I've never cooked with juice and beef other than pork, but that's not true. I use wine all the time to cook my beef, but technically that's a fermented juice. And this is the first time I've used a fresh juice with beef, and it was so good. It was not overly sweet. I was a little worried it was going to be just super over the top sweet, but pomegranate juice isn't very sweet. And so when it cooked down, it just cooked into this delicious, rich sauce with the broth too. I think the combination of basically half broth, half pomegranate juice really was a good balance. So at this point, the beef is done. It's just in the oven warming. We're ready for that to go when it's dinner time. I unloaded my dishwasher. I got any straggling dishes in the dishwasher. We're starting our polenta. I have the milk and water on to boil. I'm going to go ahead and make our punch or our mocktail up really quick. And at this point, my mom and my dad come over, and my mom actually is a huge help with helping me get all of this put together. So for this little mocktail that I'm going to make, I'm going to put in some orange juice, some pomegranate juice, 1 bottle of a good ginger beer, and 1 can of plain carbonated water. My mom just got here and she's playing with the puppy. I'm going to mix this together with some really big ice cubes that I had in my freezer from another party that needed to be used up, and I'm going to slice some orange for a just little garnish with this mocktail. And this is quickly becoming one of my favorite family traditions, is doing this grandparents' Valentine's Day dinner. I did not grow up with grandparents that lived close to me, and I really am so grateful that I live close to my parents and Josh's dad and Josh's mom. So I really want to take advantage of that and just celebrate them, because I think it's just super, super special that we have so much family so close. So here I've got my milk and water onto basically a low simmer. I'm going to slowly add my polenta. I was reading about this, and one of the keys when making polenta so that it's not clumpy and gumpy is to slowly add the corn. And if you add it all at once, it tends to clump up and it's hard to get the clumps out. This does take a good 45 minutes. My mom and dad got here, you can see it was 5:39. They got here a little early because you never know how long with traffic it's going to take for them to get to my house. And so it was really nice because I was able to do a couple other things, and my mom was able to help me. She put the ice and the water in the cups, and she actually stood and stirred the polenta for probably 20 to 30 minutes. So we just hung out at the kitchen. My dad is sitting at the island. Josh comes down, and we're all in the kitchen together as a family, just hanging out and talking. My mom is keeping a close eye on the polenta, and I am just putting the last final touches on the dinner and the table. So I do light the candles relatively early in the evening before we're going to sit down and eat, because I thought it would be nice just to get that ambiance going. So I light the table candles and the votives. I kind of turn the light down just a little bit because I like a cozy, dark environment. And here's what the table looks like all put together. My mom does help me also with one of the side dishes. So you can see her here. She's stirring the polenta still. I did turn the green beans on. So what I do with my green beans is I put probably about a half a cup of water in my pot. I put the lid on and I let the green beans steam for about 10 minutes to 15 minutes. And then I take the lid off the green beans and I let the water evaporate. Then I add my butter and garlic and I let them kind of saute and kind of brown just a little bit in the pot. The polenta is now done. We added the cheese and the butter. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the beef out of the pot. I did warm all the serving plates that were going to be served warm dishes. I put those in a 200-degree oven, and they were in the oven for probably an hour or so, just staying warm until I was ready to plate them up. Normally, I would just serve something like this in the pot, but I thought, hey, I've got the time. I'm going to dish it up and see if I like doing that better to add just a little bit more attention to detail. I had some green onions sliced in my refrigerator from something else. I went ahead and I topped that over the beef, and then I did drizzle more of that pomegranate molasses over the top of the beef, and that was incredibly delicious. My mom is getting the salad all made, so she is putting some dressing on the salad. I put a little bit more dressing on the salad. She's mixing all of that up, and then I'm going to throw in some dried cranberries, and my mom is going to top it with some pickled onions. This was incredible. I'm really glad that we had kind of this crunchy, bright, fresh, citrusy bite to balance out the really, really rich, creamy polenta and the rich beef. Even though there was a lot of brightness to the beef, it still had that like really savoriness to it. And so I'm glad that I didn't just do green beans. I'm glad I did a fresh and crunchy and bright and citrusy salad that really balanced out the entire meal. So look how creamy that polenta dish got. It was incredible. So here's what it all looks like together. We've got our beef, our green beans, our polenta. And one of the main reasons I wanted to heat that dish is I thought the polenta really needed to be in a heated dish or it was going to really thicken up too quickly. I still wanted it to be creamy and not thickened too crazy. So everyone now at this point has dished up, is sitting down. This is how we kind of served it. Polenta on the bottom, beef, green beans, and the cauliflower salad on the side. My mother-in-law brought a bottle of wine to share, so we opened that up, and it was a delicious dinner. Everyone loved it. Now, my mom did take the time to help me with all the dishes, which was so nice. And so while she was finishing up putting all of the dishes in the dishwasher, I cut up this cake. I'm going to say it for a third time. This cake was incredible. I will absolutely make this again. The juxtaposition of the slightly tangy whipped cream frosting with the kind of dense cake. This was not a super light and fluffy cake. It had some texture to it, almost like a pound cake. It was incredible, and it just went really well with the frosting. We all sat down and ate our cake in the living room, and everyone went home with a box of goodies. So friend, it was yet a beautiful dinner. Thank you for being here as we prepped and got this whole dinner put together. Josh helped me kind of put the rest of the house to bed, and it was a wonderful family time. So if you want to watch more videos, I'll put them here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Happy Valentine's Day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.